Most people think the flash is the end. They think if the big one drops on a mid-sized town like yours, you just evaporate, and that is that. They are wrong. The flash is the mercy. The real bill comes due on day 9. That is when the silence stops being eerie and starts feeling heavy. You are sitting in a basement or a reinforced hallway, listening to the dust settle, and you realise the world you knew did not just break, it was erased. Survival isn't about the blast. It is about the math of what is left behind. Go back to hour 0. You were probably at the grocery store or sitting in traffic on 4th Street. Then the sky turned a colour that does not exist in nature. It was not white. It was a searing, predatory blue that burned right through your eyelids. You felt the heat before you heard the sound. That is the physics of it. Light travels faster than the shock wave. You had exactly 3 seconds to wonder if you were already dead before the pressure wave hammered the air out of your lungs and shattered every window in a 5-mile radius. The first 4 hours were pure chaos. People did not run to shelters. They ran into the streets, screaming, looking for their kids, their spouses, anyone who could tell them this was not happening. You saw a guy trying to use his cell phone, staring at the dead screen like it was a holy relic that had failed him. Downrange, the horizon was a wall of black smoke and orange fire. The grid went down instantly. No sirens, no emergency broadcasts, just the sound of car alarms dying one by one as the electromagnetic pulse fried their electronics. This was your new SOP. Denial is the first thing that kills you in a grid-down scenario. You saw it in the neighbours. They stayed in their living rooms with the windows blown out, waiting for the National Guard to roll down the street with bottled water and blankets. They thought this was a temporary glitch, like a bad storm. But you knew better. You saw the direction of the wind. You knew that black grit falling from the sky was not ash from a house fire. It was pulverised concrete and fallout. It was the clock ticking on your internal organs. You had to move. You dragged your family into the basement, not the centre of the room, but the corner furthest below ground level. You grabbed the heavy oak table and tipped it over, piling every book, every gallon of water, and every suitcase you could find on top of it. Mass is your only friend when gamma rays are looking for a host. You were not just building a fort, you were building a lead-lined coffin that you hoped would keep you alive. The kids were crying, asking why they could not turn on the lights. You had no answer. By hour 3, the thirst set in. Not the kind of thirst you get after a jog. This was a metallic, dry heat in the back of your throat. You looked at the tap, but you did not touch it. You knew the city water towers were sitting ducks for fallout. Every drop in those pipes was a potential delivery system for iodine 131. Your daughter looked at you with cracked lips, holding her empty water bottle. That is when the guilt hits. You realise you spent years worrying about your 401k when you should have been worrying about 5-gallon stackables. Outside, the wind began to howl. It was a strange, flat sound. There were no birds, no dogs barking, just the wind whipping through the skeletal remains of the neighbourhood. You peeked through a crack in the cellar door and saw the sky had turned a sickly, bruised purple. The fallout was coming down like heavy snow, but it didn't melt. It just piled up on the porch, a silent killer waiting for a breeze to carry it into your lungs. You sealed the door with duct tape and prayed the seal held. That first night was the longest of your life. Every creak of the house sounded like a looter. Every cough from your son sounded like the onset of radiation sickness. You sat there with a flashlight you knew would eventually run out of batteries, staring at the wall. You realised that the town was not coming to help. The police were at home with their own families. The fire department was overwhelmed. You were an island of 4 people in a sea of radioactive dust. Self-preservation had to shift to total protection. You were the only wall left. In the dark, you went over your inventory. 2 cases of water, 6 cans of peaches, a bag of rice you had no way to cook without making the basement smell like a target. You realized your gear was not a force multiplier because you did not have a force to multiply. You were just a guy with a backpack. If you wanted to survive to day 30, you needed a system. You needed to understand the physics of what was happening outside that basement door, or you would be just another statistic by the end of the week. Looking at your wife sleeping on a cold concrete floor, you felt a new kind of fear. It was not the fear of dying, it was the fear of failing them. You realized that hope is not a strategy. It never was. If you had spent 10 minutes a week learning the actual protocols for a nuclear event, you would not be guessing right now. You would know exactly how many Roentgens that basement wall was blocking. But you didn't. You waited until the sky fell to start learning. Hope is not a strategy. Most people guess they have enough food, but the math says otherwise. When the grid goes dark, your intuition will fail you. You need hard data and a proven plan. Go to protocolsurvival.com right now. Calculate your survival score using our proprietary assessment tools. Do not wait for the flash to realize you are unprepared. Enroll in our free Catastrophe Survival 101 course and get the training before you actually need it. Your family's life depends on your competence, not your luck. Get the command center ready today. Welcome to Day 9. This is the milestone that separates the survivors from the casualties. By now, the adrenaline has burned out. Your body is running on cortisol and stale crackers. The basement smells like unwashed skin and desperation. But something major has happened in the invisible world. Today marks the first half-life of iodine-131. Approximately half of that radioactive poison that blanketed your town on day 1 has decayed into stable xenon. It is a win, but do not start celebrating yet. The invisible war is just changing its tactics. You are moving from the sprint to the marathon. Iodine-131 is the sprinter of isotopes. It hits hard and fast, targeting your thyroid and trying to cause permanent damage in the first week. But because its half-life is roughly 8 days, Day 9 is the first time you can breathe a very small sigh of relief regarding your water and food safety. The hot iodine is diminishing. However, the ground outside is still a minefield of cesium-137 and strontium-90. Those isotopes do not care about a 9-day milestone. They are planning to stay for the next 30 years. Cesium-137 is the one that should keep you up at night. It is highly water-soluble. It does not just sit on the ground, it moves with the rain, soaking into the soil and the muscle tissue of anything that eats from that soil. Strontium-90 is even more insidious. It looks like calcium to your body. If you ingest it, your bones will grab it and lock it in for decades. This is why Day 9 is not an all clear. It is just a shift in the food consumption hierarchy. You have to be tactical about what you eat now. During the first week, you should have burned through your Tier 1 supplies. These are the pre-sealed packages, canned goods, and the stuff in the fridge that was still cold when the power died. Now, on Day 9, you move to Tier 2. These are your pantry staples: rice, pasta, beans, flour. But here is the catch. They must have been stored in sealed containers away from the air. If that bag of flour was open on the counter when the fallout hit, it is no longer food. It is a delivery system for strontium. Be ruthless with your pantry. You might be tempted to look out the window and see the river. You might think about catching a fish to supplement your rations. Do not. Fish in contaminated water are bioaccumulation machines. The larger predatory fish have been eating smaller fish that have been eating contaminated algae. By the time it gets to your hook, that fish is a radioactive concentrate. The same goes for any fresh produce or dairy. If a cow ate contaminated grass, that milk is a poison cocktail. In the early weeks, if it grew outdoors, it is dead to you. There is a smell in the basement that is more dangerous than the radiation. It is the smell of human waste. Without functioning sewage systems, your toilet is now a biological hazard. You cannot just flush it and hope for the best. On day 9, sanitation becomes a life or death community priority. If you do not manage your waste, you will not die of radiation sickness. You will die of cholera or dysentery in a dark corner of your own home. This is where the Carney Nuclear War Survival Skills Protocols become your Bible. You need a system that doesn't involve your living space. If you have a yard, you need a covered pit latrine. It has to be as far from your shelter and your water source as practical. You dig it deep, and you keep it covered to prevent flies from turning your waste into a neighborhood plague. If you are stuck inside, you use the 2-bucket system. One for liquids, one for solids. You use cat litter, sawdust, or even shredded newspapers to manage the moisture. You use lime or ash from a fireplace to treat the waste. It is disgusting, it is grueling, and it is absolutely mandatory for survival. Ventilation is the most overlooked requirement in a shelter. You are worried about the air coming in, but you should be worried about the air staying in. Without proper airflow, carbon dioxide levels rise, making you sluggish and making poor decisions. You need an improvised Carney pump, or at least a staggered vent system that lets air circulate without giving fallout a direct path to your lungs. Every breath you take in that basement is a calculation. You are balancing the risk of radiation against the certainty of suffocation. It is a grim math, but it is yours to solve. You might think this is overkill. You might think the National Guard or FEMA will roll in by day 9 with chemical toilets and MREs. That is the common objection to doomsday prepping. But think about the scale. In a nuclear escalation, there is no outside help coming. The National Guard units in your town are made of people whose own homes were hit. Their families are in basements just like yours. The supply chains for fuel, food, and medicine are not just broken, they are vaporized. No one is coming to empty your bucket. You are the government now. Act accordingly. Day 9 is when the psychological wall hits. The novelty of survival has worn off. The adventure is gone. Now it is just the cold reality of a world that is broken. You start to hear things. Maybe it is the wind, or maybe it is a neighbour trying to get into your garage. Your nerves are frayed like an old rope. You have to maintain discipline. If you stop the sanitation SOP, if you start eating the Tier 3 food too early, or if you leave the shelter because you just need some air, you are inviting death into your circle. On day 9, you might hear a knock. Not a loud one, a weak, desperate tapping on the basement window. It is the guy from 3 houses down. He did not prepare. He has 2 kids and no water. He is begging. This is the hardest part of the curriculum. If you open that door, you are not just sharing your water, you are letting in the fallout he is covered in. You are compromising the seal. You are choosing between your child's life and his. Guilt is a weight you will carry forever, but fear will keep you alive. You have to watch your family for the latent period. Many people who receive a lethal dose of radiation feel better after the first few days. It is a cruel trick of biology. By day 9, if anyone starts showing signs of recurring nausea, hair loss, or small purple bruises under the skin, you are looking at systemic failure. There is no hospital to go to. All you can do is keep them hydrated and comfortable. This is why you stay in the shelter. You are not just hiding from the rays, you are hiding from the heartbreak of seeing the fallout work. In the silence, you clean your gear. Your knife, your flashlights, your containers. Maintenance is a form of meditation. It keeps your hands busy and your mind sharp. If you let your tools rust, you are telling yourself that the future does not matter. But it does. You are cleaning that 10-inch blade because on day 15 you are going to have to leave this basement. You are going to have to scout. And the world you step into will not be the one you left. It will be a scavenged, desperate landscape. You start calculating the calories again. You are at 1,200 a day for yourself, 1,500 for the kids. You are losing weight, but you're not starving yet. The rice is the backbone of your Tier 2 plan. You have to figure out a way to soften it without using too much of your precious water. Maybe you soak it for 12 hours. Maybe you have a small butane stove, but you only use it for 3 minutes at a time to minimize the oxygen burn. Every meal is a tactical operation. Every calorie is a victory. The hardest thing to get used to is the silence. No humming from the refrigerator, no distant sound of the interstate. Just the sound of your own heartbeat and the ragged breathing of your family. You realize how much of your life was built on the noise of the grid. Now that the grid is gone, you are left with the raw components of existence. Day 9 is the day you stop being a consumer and start being a survivor. You are learning to live in the gaps. You are becoming something the old world wouldn't recognize. When the grid goes dark, the cloud goes with it. Your digital manuals, your bookmarked videos, and your saved maps will be gone in an instant. You need a command center that works offline, built into the hardware of your survival strategy. I built the Protocol Survival app to be that system. It allows you to secure your inventory, track your supplies, and access your free training modules, even when there is no signal. Do not wait for the towers to fall. Secure your offline backup now while you still have a connection. protocolsurvival.com. Day 15. You have survived the most dangerous 2 weeks of the nuclear age. The iodine-131 is mostly gone, decayed into that stable xenon we talked about. The immediate gamma threat from the ground has dropped significantly, not because the isotopes are gone, but because they have settled and decayed. It is time to see what is left of your town. You put on your thickest clothes, your gloves, and your mask. You are not going for a stroll. You are going on a scouting mission. The goal? Tier 3 food and a better sense of the perimeter. Walking out your front door is like stepping onto another planet. The neighbourhood is a monochrome graveyard. The trees are grey, covered in a fine layer of dust. Your neighbour's car is still in the driveway, its tyres melted or blown out. The silence is even louder out here. You keep your head down. You are looking for hot spots, areas where the wind has piled up the fallout into drifts. You avoid the low ground where the rain might have concentrated the cesium. You move like a ghost. Your target is a local warehouse or a distribution centre on the edge of town. You avoid the small convenience stores. They were looted or burned in the first 48 hours. You want the big industrial spaces. These are the locations of Tier 3 food, sealed commercial inventories. You are looking for pallets of canned goods, bulk grains, and medical supplies that were protected by thick concrete walls and steel roofing. This is the fuel you need to get through day 30 and beyond. This is the mission. As you move, you are assessing the threats. It isn't just the radiation anymore. It is the other people who emerged. You see a group of 3 men near the old hardware store. They aren't looking for food. They are looking for power. You stay in the shadows. This is where your tactical training kicks in. You are not looking for a fight. A single scratch in this environment can lead to a fatal infection. You are a gatherer, not a warrior. But you carry your sidearm with a new kind of familiarity. The rule of law has been replaced by the rule of the prepared. You run into another survivor near the pharmacy. He looks like a skeleton. He is coughing, a deep, wet sound that tells you his lungs are full of fallout. He asks you for help. This is the test of your resolve. You have a choice. Help a dying man and risk your own health, or keep moving. You remember your family in the basement. You remember the child with the cracked lips. You realise that you cannot save everyone. You can barely save yourself. You nod once and move on. The world has become a zero-sum game. You reach the warehouse. The doors are heavy and the power is dead. You have to use a pry bar to get in. Inside, the air is cool and smells of cardboard and dust. It is a cathedral of supplies. This is the difference between surviving and thriving. You find a pallet of bottled water that hasn't been touched. You find cases of canned tuna. You feel a surge of hope, but you keep it in check. You can't carry a pallet. You have to be selective. You fill your pack with high-protein, high-calorie density items. The walk back is harder. Your pack is heavy, and your legs feel like lead. You are constantly checking your back. You realise that your town has become a series of territories. Every street corner is a potential ambush. You take a back alley route through the skeletal remains of a park. You see the playground equipment, rusted and covered in grey ash. It looks like a relic from a lost civilization. You realise that your kids will never play here again. The world didn't just break, it was replaced. When you get back to your shelter, the work isn't done. You cannot just walk in. You have a strict decontamination protocol. You strip off your outer layers in the garage. You wipe yourself down with a damp cloth, careful not to spread the dust. You dispose of the cloth in a sealed bag. Only then do you enter the basement. Your wife looks at you with wide eyes. You drop the bag of food on the table. It is the first real win in 2 weeks. But the price of that win was the realization of how dangerous the outside world has become. You spend the evening looking at your maps. You have to plan your next moves around the cesium-137. You need to find a way to get more water that isn't contaminated. You start thinking about rain catchment systems with sand and charcoal filters. You are no longer just reacting to the blast. You are building a new life in the ruins. You are thinking about months, not days. You are thinking about how to keep your family sane when the world outside is a graveyard. You are the architect of their future. By day 30, the realization fully sinks in. The grid is not coming back. You see a plane in the distance, high up, but it doesn't land. It is probably a reconnaissance flight from some part of the country that wasn't hit as hard. But they aren't dropping supplies. They are just watching. You are on your own. The mid-sized town you lived in is now a survival laboratory. You have passed the first month, but the challenge is changing. You are moving into the long haul. This is where the true character of a survivor is forged. Welcome to day 31. You have outlived 80% of your neighbours. The ones who are left are either, like you, prepared and disciplined, or they are the predators who survived by taking from others. The social collapse is complete. There are no more nice people. There are only those who have something and those who want it. Your world has shrunk to the size of your house and the 2 blocks surrounding it. This is the long haul, where the real battle for survival shifts from physics to psychology. The rules of society have evaporated. In the old world, if you were hungry, you went to the store. In this world, if you are hungry, you look for a weakness. You see it in the way people move, quick, nervous, always looking over their shoulders. You have to establish a perimeter. You and the 2 families you trust have formed a small security detail. You watch each other's backs while someone scavenges or works the filters. Trust is the most valuable currency you have left, and it is in very short supply. Money is paper. Gold is heavy. On day 40, you realise that the real barter items are salt, antibiotics, and clean water. You trade a spare flashlight for a bottle of amoxicillin. It is a high price, but your daughter has a fever and a cut that won't heal. You are making deals in the shadows of burned-out houses. You realise that the economy is just a way to quantify desperation. Every trade is a risk. You never show your full hand. You never let them know how much you actually have back at the house. Even with your Tier 3 scavenging, the food is running low. The starvation is not a sudden thing. It is a slow, grinding ache in your stomach. Your muscles start to waste away. You become irritable, your judgment clouded by the lack of nutrients. You have to be disciplined. You weigh every portion. You eat the things you hate because they have calories. You realise that a human body can go a long time without food, but the mind breaks much faster. You have to keep the morale up, even when the bowl is half empty. As the days turn into months, the weather becomes a new enemy. Without the urban heat island effect and the heating systems of a modern city, the cold is brutal. You are huddled around a small wood stove you improvised from a 55-gallon drum. You are burning the furniture to stay warm. You realise that survival is a series of trade-offs. You burn the dining table to keep the kids from freezing, but that means you are losing a piece of your former life. The house is becoming a shell, just like the world outside. There are no dentists. There are no doctors. A simple tooth infection can become a death sentence. You spend your evenings reading the medical manuals you scavenged, learning how to stitch wounds and treat infections with the meagre supplies you have. You realise how much you took for granted. The simple ability to get a shot of lidocaine is a fantasy now. You are practicing 19th century medicine with a 21st century knowledge base, and the gap between the two is where the fear lives. You pray no one gets seriously ill. You walk past the house of the neighbour who begged for water on day 9. The windows are broken, and the door is hanging off its hinges. They didn't make it. You feel a pang of guilt, but it is quickly replaced by a cold sense of validation. If you had helped them, you might be in that house with them. Survival is not about being a good person. It is about being a living person. You have to harden your heart to the suffering of those who didn't listen. It is the only way to keep your own family safe. By day 90, you have a routine. You wake up, check the perimeter, check the water filters, and plan the day's forage. You don't think about the old world much anymore. It feels like a movie you saw a long time ago. Your kids don't ask about the internet or the TV. They ask if the traps caught anything. They have become scavengers too. You see the hardness in their eyes, and it breaks your heart. But you also know that hardness is what will keep them alive in this new world. They are the first generation of the ruins. You hear a rumour from a traveller, a guy passing through who traded some news for a meal. He says there are organised communities 3 counties over. They have a working well and a garden. They are building a wall. It sounds like a dream, but you have to decide. Do you stay here in the safety of your cellar? Or do you risk the open road for the chance of something better? This is the ultimate survival dilemma. Staying is certain decay. Leaving is uncertain danger. You look at your map and your dwindling supplies. The decision has to be made soon. As you sit in the quiet of day 100, you realise you have changed. You are not the person who panicked in the grocery store traffic. You are leaner, tougher, and more aware. You have learned that human beings are incredibly resilient, but only if they have a plan. You have turned a nightmare into a manageable reality. You are still here. Your family is still here. You have defied the odds of the nuclear age. You are the proof that preparation is not paranoia. It is the foundation of the future. We spend our lives worrying about the wrong things. We worry about the stock market, the Wi-Fi speed, and the opinions of people we don't even like. But when the sky turns blue and the grid goes down, all of that evaporates. You are left with the only things that ever truly mattered: the health of your family and the knowledge in your head. The grid isn't what keeps the lights on. It is what keeps the monsters out. And once the lights are gone, you find out very quickly which one you are. Are you the victim or the protector? Day 9 was the milestone of the isotope, but every day after is a milestone of your will. Do not wait for the flash to decide who you are going to be. Start the training now. Get the systems in place. Secure your family's future before the world decides to take it from you. Go to protocolsurvival.com. Get the app, take the course, and build your command center. Because when the silence comes, the only thing you will have to rely on is the preparation you did today. The clock is ticking. Stay alert, stay safe.